A go bag is just so that, like, if something mad happens, yeah, let me get this right. If something mad happens, this bag is that a bag that you pick up and you just cut with.
Yeah, it's got all your stuff in it. It's got a bit of extra cash in it. It's got some sort of survival gear in it. If the day came and the New World Order, like, officially took over, martial law was installed or something like that, the plan was, right, we're dipping out of Bristol, we're crossing the bridge, and we're going to Wales.
What's good, everyone? I have someone with me today called Brent Lee. I'm right by saying that, Brent Lee.
That's right, man. Yeah.
How are you, Brent?
I'm great. Thanks
Good?
for having me. Yeah.
Yeah? First time being in Ladbroke Grove?
Yeah?
Not the first time being in London? No.
No.
You grew up in...
I grew up in Germany.
In Germany?
Yeah.
Wait, so let me get it because I'm going to try and remember this. You was born in England, grew up in Germany until you were 16 years old. Then you came back and then you moved to Bristol.
Yeah, I moved to Bristol about 12 years ago.
And then never came back.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. Okay, cool. I just wanted to just paint a little context there, and that's it, just for people who know. But I just want to get almost straight to the I just want to get straight to it, to be honest with you. I want to have a conversation about conspiracies, conspiracy theorists, and conspiracism.
Yeah.
Is that the right way of saying it?
Yeah.
Conspiracism. Definitely. Also, a number shout out to Sheila as well. I'll talk about her in a bit. You're here with me today because basically you went down a mad rabbit hole and couldn't get out, basically.
Yeah. Well, I did get out.
Oh, yeah, yes, exactly. You got out in the end.
Yeah.
You got out in
15 years, but yeah.
And I seen you talking a lot about coming out of conspiracism. I never knew that was even a thing, if I'm being honest. Like, obviously, thinking about it, of course, it would be a thing, but I never really thought about, like people can be like quite extreme conspiracy theorists, but then you never really hear about people coming out of conspiracism. How much of a problem is this?
I think, like, say, let's define what conspiracy theorist is and what a conspiracist who, like, subscribes to conspiracism is. So a conspiracy theorist is just someone who, like, believes or entertains certain conspiracy theories and can just get on with their life and carry on, you know. But a conspiracist...
That's me.
Yeah, okay.
I
so
think.
A conspiracist is just completely obsessed with conspiracy theories, and the whole world is run through conspiracy. You know, so like an Illuminati, New World Order style conspiracy theory, where you think everything is controlled. Every government, every institution, even like organized crime, all of that is all controlled by the same people. And that is conspiracism to me.
Right.
And that's what I had. That's what I believed. Now, having like little beliefs and little conspiracy theories and just moving on with your life, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's keeping your mind open. It's testing your critical thought. It's all that kind of stuff. But when you're trapped in conspiracism and you think the entire world is run like this, it rules your life. And that's what I think is like really wrong, because you've got this strange view of how everything is run, and it's quite oppressive thinking that like the whole world is out to get you. Essentially, the whole world is there as a trap, and that's where I was for 15 whole years.
It's crazy because, you know what, at one point, when we was talking about doing this episode, there was a period of time where I couldn't go and see my brethrens and them not talk about the government. Yeah. Like, there was always this thing of like the government, they'd be billing their spliff and they'd be like, yeah, it's because of the government this, the government that, and whatever. And at one point, it used to drive me crazy. It used to just drive me crazy. But like, explain to me and talk to me like where it actually started, because I want to actually get to the point of like how deep it got for you. But where did it start?
For me, it starts in 2003. We're on the cusp of war with Iraq. There's lies about weapons of mass destruction going around, which proved to not be true as well. Like, the government was trying to ask us to go to war, you know, in Iraq, based on this weapons of mass destruction lie. After 9/11, plenty of laws had been changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like in America, it's the Patriot Act. Over here was the terrorism bill, and lots of our freedoms were like taken away. So that kind of stuff was playing on my mind, and essentially I just kind of downloaded a few documentaries online, and one of the first ones really was a 9/11 conspiracy theory documentary. And after the first play, I was like, this is something I should look into. This looks interesting. Like maybe the government did pull off 9/11. And from that point, I started looking more and more and more at different videos that were trying to show that it was an inside job. And there was always this like common thread that this attack was like to get us to go to war in the Middle East and start, getting resources.
I heard that.
Yeah. And so I thought that's the answer right there. That is why we're going to war. And I was just sold. And I just kept looking at more stuff and downloading more things. And yeah, I started building my worldview around this idea that these people were essentially murdering our citizens, murdering our people to go off and do war. And that's the beginning.
Yeah, the concept of that is kind of crazy when you think about it.
When you stop and think about it, this is what's like kind of why I say it's important to talk about this stuff, because if you like 9/11, man, if you think 9/11 is an inside job, that means you think the government will actually murder 3,000 citizens in front of your eyes just to go to war.
Okay, here's what my slight rebuttal. This is just my cynicism to a degree. I don't believe that that's the case at all. Actually, I don't even know what I believe, but I'm just saying what's in my head. Yeah, I don't believe that the government would do something like that. But I do believe that a group of people, whether it would be the government or whoever, could use something like that as an excuse to go and do something. So I don't think that they would set up, oh yeah, okay, you jump in, you go and do X, Y, and Z. But it's like, okay, now that this has happened, you can use this as an excuse to make it seem like, use it as an excuse to do something that is really, equally not as good, but make it seem as though you're doing something for the greater good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I'm at now.
Right.
They capitalized off this attack. Yeah, that same with COVID. You've had so many people capitalize off of like this disaster essentially. And that's where like it kind of looks like it was a conspiracy. But it's not. It's just these people taking advantage of like bad things that happen. That's definitely what, like, spoiler alert, that's where I am now.
Okay. I thought we'll get to where you're at later. But
that's I think a lot of it is wrapped up in like just corruption, collusion, and capitalizing.
So it started there. It started there for you, and then how deep did it actually get?
Well, within a few years, I was definitely thinking that the entire world was run by a secret society or a cult. Essentially, they were trying to raise the Antichrist. Okay. That's how I thought the whole world was like this occult ritual. Like we were constantly under black magic spells to like fall in line and believe the narrative, shall we say?
Yeah.
But it was deep, man. I was into David Icke and Alex Jones and all these kinds of people. The first forum I went to in 2005 was the David Icke forum. That's the first time I started to speak to people online about it. And yeah, the David Icke forum was the only place I could find at that time. So we were just talking about all the type of stuff Icke talks about,
he actually David Icke had the hood on Smash. He did, didn't he? Because I heard Bear Man in the hood talking about David Icke at one point. I remember this was this is kind of funny when I think about it. This was at the time where they was talking about, I think, the Queen being a lizard.
Yeah.
That was one of his theories, that she was a lizard or whatever else. And so I used to hear a lot about that. I used to hear a lot about like him and his thoughts and stuff like that. And I used to always ask myself, where did he come from? Like, how comes he's become such a thing? But then like you will always find a small number of people that will be searching for the other.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like what happened with you.
Yeah. I think the thing with David Icke, he appeals to people who aren't like necessarily conservative or right wing, because a lot of the other people, like say Alex Jones or William Cooper, these sorts of people are like explicitly conservative and right wing, you know. And David Icke didn't come from that side of it. He appeals more to like the left wing kind of populist sort of people, you know, who don't like this authority, you know. So he was able to appeal to that because he kind of came from the new age left green politics. That's kind of like where he had come from. So that appealed to like normal people essentially. That's what I think that's what his big appeal was.
So what like, I'm assuming that this changed the way that you just lived your life day to day.
Oh yeah. I stopped. Essentially, I didn't care about like being an adult, you know, doing the adult things, getting a mortgage or trying to build a career or really finding someone to have a family with or any of that kind of thing. Because essentially I thought the New World Order is going to take over. We're going to all be enslaved soon. So what's the point in doing any of that? Like at some point I'm going to be on the run.
Oh, wow.
Like that's the idea that I kind of had, you know, and that ruled my life. Like I didn't bother doing many things. Like I was in a band and I wouldn't go out to the after gigs or the after parties. We'd play our gig, I'd go home and I'd watch a documentary, you know, while everyone's off partying. I'm at home smoking weed and watching David Icke lectures.
The common denominator.
In it.
So then, like, how did you ever meet a woman in that time, actually? And like, what were them conversations like? Because obviously at some point you're trying to detach yourself from that situation, but telling her your thought process. Like, what were them conversations like?
Yeah, I went on a couple of dates and I wasn't interested, to be honest. If they weren't into this kind of thing, I wasn't really interested. But in 2010, I meet my partner and we're both on the same level. You know, we're into this thing. We meet online. Eventually we meet in life. We get on like a house of fire and that's it. Like, still together today.
Oh, that's it.
You know, we both was really deep in it, but we both came out together.
So what kind of like within that time period, were there other like common, what some people would say are conspiracies that you believed in at the time? Because obviously 9/11 was one. What other Sandy Hook is obviously a next thing that I know that became quite a big thing. I didn't even realize that, like, one, I didn't even know much about Sandy Hook. I obviously knew at the time that there was a school shooting or whatever. But then, like, it's only until some years later I saw Alex Jones, who was on the internet saying that it didn't happen. Or it was, what did he say? What was his thing? It was a hoax.
A hoax with crisis actors involved and nobody dies.
Right,
allegedly.
Yeah. So then I started to just become a little bit in tune in what he was saying. I think only because, not because I believed what he was saying, but because there was a big conversation at the time about freedom of speech or whatever. So it was like, he was saying this stuff, but then he was being taken to court. Then you had one side of people that was talking about freedom of speech, you should be able to just say what you want to say, and then other people were saying that you shouldn't. Then there was like some other people in the middle that are saying, well, you should be able to say what you want to say, but you're going to have to face consequences if you are proved wrong, which seemed like that's kind of what happened with him, right? Yeah. But see, was you still in the mix of it while all of that was happening, or was you already out then?
Oh no, I was still in the mix of it. Well, during the 2012 December is when Sandy Hook happens. Now I used to believe like all of these types of things, all of these mass shootings, terrorist attacks, anything that like the media would make a big deal out of was part of like a ritual. Essentially for me, Sandy Hook was a sacrifice. They had killed children to try and like continue to birth this new world order. And I thought that across the board with every single terrorist attack, mass shooting, global event, essentially. Even like the tsunami, the Sumatra tsunami, even thought that was like weather modification and they did it on purpose, or it was maybe an underwater nuke. It just seemed like everything was controlled by them. But I had an opinion like almost on any kind of conspiracy theory, from moon landing to JFK, to Sandy Hook, to the Charlie Hebdo thing, to practically anything in conspiracy culture. I would say someone who's a conspiracist like has an opinion on all of them.
Let's go back to the conspiracy theorist you.
Yeah.
What did you, in regards to the moon landing, what was your opinion on that?
I thought Stanley Kubrick had directed the footage, and that we hadn't gone, and it was just to kind of beat the Russians,
right,
in like this space race, just to make themselves look like, oh, look how much more powerful we are than you.
Right.
But essentially, yeah, I didn't think we went. I thought they got Stanley Kubrick to direct the actual footage.
What about, because I'm pretty sure you definitely would have had an opinion on flat Earth.
Oh yeah. I you know what? I looked into it when it started coming around, because that as well, that starts coming around 2013 to 2015. Like, that wasn't really a big thing that anyone was talking about before that. And when that came around, I blew it off straight away. Like, I'm not going to listen to that. Like, I know a bit about science. I know a bit about the planet and the universe and all that, you know. But my friend said, hey, no, you need to look into this, because it's not about that. It's about NASA and the government's lying to you about reality. So I thought, oh God, yeah, actually, that's a good point.
That's your thing. Yeah.
That's a good point. I'll have a look at that. So me and my partner, we sat down and we watched documentary after documentary, checking stuff out, about 2 weeks, and came to the conclusion of like, yeah, this is BS. Like, this is definitely not true. So what's going on here? And conspiratorial mind, I start thinking, okay, it's the Illuminati. They've pushed this idea to make the rest of us look stupid, essentially. And that was kind of what I thought all about flat Earth theory, the flat Earth believers. I thought they had all been taken for a ride by a government, or by the secret government.
That was another one as well, Illuminati. That always, Freemasons, yeah. Mm-hmm. What was your understanding of the Illuminati at that point?
I thought like the people that ruled the world were what we called the Illuminati, not necessarily what their actual name was. I used to kind of think, I bet they don't have a name for themselves other than like, I guess, the Chosen or the Apex or whatever, whoever it's going to be, like those on top. I just figured they probably haven't got a name, but it's probably better for us all to call them the Illuminati, because that seemed to be a brand that had stuck, because the Illuminati means the enlightened ones. Mm-hmm. So if they felt like they were more enlightened than us. But I would call the whole cult the Illuminati or the New World Order. Like, the kind of terms are interchangeable for me.
Yeah.
But eventually I started even dropping that term and just calling them the cult, because I thought they were a cult, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that still believe that, though.
Oh, yeah. There's more than there was when I was around.
Yeah.
I think, like, conspiracy...
I don't think people mention Masons so much anymore. Like, Masons was a massive thing at one point. Like, people were talking about Masons and whatever else and that. And, like, obviously, you look into that, you know that there's, like, people that are a part of the Masonry, but how deep it is, I mean, I don't know. I mean, my thing is that, like, maybe I'm like, my mindset has always been, I've always been very open-minded, and maybe I've just never really cared enough to, like, super deep dive in these things or whatnot. I do critique everything, but in my head, though. it doesn't necessarily reflect my behavior, but I'm very skeptical of stuff. Do you know what I mean? I've got like my own little things. Like, for example, sometimes I think like when I'm in Oxford Street, like I might be in Oxford Street. You know Oxford Street, right?
Yeah.
I'll be in Oxford Street and I think, just don't believe that everyone here is real though. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be about 15% of people that, like, I'm being generous here, that is not really real. And
well,
I'm never going to know.
Well, like a clone or something.
Could be.
NPC.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could be like, I mean, obviously everyone's talking about AI now and that. But I'm like, whatever it is, I don't know. And I'll never know, but I'm all right with never knowing.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. And I think if one day we had this conversation on the pod before where we was talking about, could you handle the truth? Like if you had the opportunity, I think the question I asked was, would you rather be able to have the ability to hear every animal speak or know the truth of like any, you know, hidden thing that's happened in the world or whatever? So obviously I've leaned to that, yeah. And then it came into a conversation about whether you'd be able to handle the truth or not. And I'm like, I think so. I mean, I don't know how deep this is. I think so. But that's because already it's somewhere in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if everyone's real. I don't, innit? But you just never know. Like, and I could be wrong, but it's just something that's just kind of within my head with there's no real, I ain't looked into anything. I haven't like read anything. I haven't been in a group full of people or whatever that have told me this. You know, like you just get these little feelings within yourself. It's like, what is real around me? Like, what is real? Is it beyond the possibility that this could happen? And I think sometimes like, even when it comes to the government, right? Because of like historically, I got two things actually I want to say. Historically, if you do find that a government apparently has told some type of lie or whatever, then I do think that like skepticism creeps into people's minds when certain things do happen because they think, well, they lied about this. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Right? There's that. And then also, I think films have really messed us up because I think sometimes like there's films that have come out, like we watch films, then we come back into reality, and then sometimes I think that we've seen this in a film. This can't, like, you look at reality and you think, this can't really be reality. And then when you couple that to things that have like so happened to happen, so like there might have been a film back in the day where, you know, you had a phone and you could like FaceTime somebody through the phone. Like the government was doing that in the film.
Yeah.
Where they were just like, you know, they took out a phone and they could see each other through the phone. And then, lo and behold, 30 years later or 20 years later, we've got an iPhone and we can do it. Somewhere in people's minds, it's like, well, what are they not showing us? Like, what are they not showing us? But it's how deep people get with what some people would say is misinformation and how that sort of triggers your behaviors and like how you maneuver in the world, right?
Yeah, well, that's what was with me. Like, because I was so like wrapped up in this conspiracy world, like it did affect my behavior. It did withdraw me from society. It did stop me from like speaking to people about like small talk. I didn't want to have small talk. I want to talk about these people that are enslaved in the goddamn... You know what I mean?
I hear it still. Like, I hear that.
I still feel like I'm suffer from that today. Like, yeah, I had a new guy start at work recently, and I just felt like I wasn't speaking to him. He was trying to talk to me, and I was like, "Yeah, cool." But I didn't mean to be rude or nothing, you know. But then I stopped, and I was like, "I think I'm being rude to this guy. I need to make an effort. Like, he's brand new. I need to say, like, hey, yeah. So what were you up to last night? Like, you know." But I feel like it's totally ruined that social interaction that I've lost essentially. Just from withdrawing myself so much. Yeah,
like, would you say that also is your brain just can only really lock into things that you're just super interested in?
Yeah.
And when it comes to having small talk, Because there's a skill in having small talk when you don't care about what someone... when you don't care about how your day is, yeah? When you don't care about it. Like, when you don't, like, it's just... You don't... It's just whatever. There's a skill to be able to keep that conversation going. But if you don't have that skill and it's just your mind is only locked into what you're interested in, then when somebody does want to have small talk with you, then it's very difficult to do that because you don't really care about it.
Yeah.
Like, which then it's difficult to build relationships after that.
Yeah.
Which is great because ultimately you still, not great, but I mean, the good thing is you manage to find your partner based upon not having small talk.
True.
Do you get what I'm saying?
No,
like, otherwise, if you had loads of
conversations,
say that again.
We had the longest conversations.
There you go. It's like, imagine if you just did small talk, then you would have had to have had so many different conversations with so many different. I've got it. That's probably where we're going wrong in the dating world, by the way. We're just having loads of small talk.
Talk about something real.
Yeah, like let's have a conversation about actually something and find out whether we have a mental connection in that properly, and then we can do the small talk later on down the line. I don't know. I'm going to unpack that a little bit later.
I mean, me and my partner were saying this the other day, literally, like, we've been together since 2010, and we still don't feel like the honeymoon period is over.
Right.
Because we've never drifted apart or got bored of each other. We've just had we still have these conversations every day. Put the world to right, you know?
Yeah. I like that still. You made a platform with, like, because obviously you're a musician, right?
Yeah.
So I was told that you made a platform to put so that other conspiracists could put their music on this platform.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So in 2005, I started moving to David Icke Forum, and a new social media site starts popping up called MySpace. You know, it's the first kind of thing that's going on, like first social media site that's around, and we were like, oh sweet, let's go on to MySpace. Start going into MySpace. I'm putting my own music up on there, which is very conspiracy laden, like hip hop, and I start coming across other people across the world that also sing or rap about this kind of thing. So I was like, oh, let's try and like link everyone up together. And eventually I started making a blog site, you know, a MySpace, moved on to Facebook and group and all that, called Truth Music Directory. And I would just gather these people from all around the world that were into this kind of stuff, no matter what they were into. Like towards the end, even if you're into flat earth, I would put you on there because you talked about conspiracism or this conspiracy culture, you know. And I compiled people from all over the world for quite a few years, and that was kind of where I built my community. Like every artist or band that I got involved, I would be then part of their fandom, or their fandom would follow us and follow me. So that's kind of just built this massive community through Truth Music, essentially. Like, got co-signed by Immortal Technique.
Oh, swear.
You know,
he's hard though.
Yeah, he like I got I was a member of Guerrilla Republic for a while.
Right. Okay.
You know, and
sick.
Yeah, I did that for ages. That was like my thing, and then I started writing like conspiracy blogs, and that's where I started moving on to like decoding the world and everything.
Like what? Explain that. Like deep dive that to me.
All right.
Please.
Let me get a sip for the.
Yeah. I need as much detail as possible.
All right. So, in April 2010, right? April 2011. Oh, fucking hell, I can't even remember. One of those years, right? April something. There was Gaddafi's son was killed. The royal wedding happened between Kate and Will. Obama released his birth certificate, and the Pope was beatified, which means they pulled him out of his grave, moved him to a different place, and put him in a sainthood kind of spot. The thing is, this all happened over one weekend, right? And if we lay it out in context, It was Obama's birth certificate, the royal wedding, the death of Gaddafi and his sons, and the beatification of the Pope. Now, I looked at that as a birth, life, death, resurrection ritual, because they all happened 4 days. The Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, a whole weekend. And this was the week before Easter, which is obviously like a resurrection kind of celebration. There were certain things in those 4 events that made me look at it like it was all part of this black magic ritual, like performed on all of us. Specifically, like the royal wedding, it had like lots of numerology involved in it, lots of numbers, lots of like pagan symbology to like the wedding, essentially, when they're supposed to be Catholics or Christians. Like they're well, not Catholics proper, just Christians, Church of England, you know, the royal family, that's who they are. But they do all these pagan rituals within their wedding, and I thought that was very, very strange, you know. Yeah, and basically me and my partner, we just sat there and kind of wrote down every number that was being said on the news, like, because we felt like if they said the number 4 or the number 12 or something, it was always a significant number. So why are they saying it, you know? But like I said, man, it was like this massive blog where we just broke down every like colors that people were wearing, or like the fascinators that women had. Like we were saying, like, oh, that's symbolic of Saturn and its rings and stuff like this. And it's like, yeah, I think we were seeing a lot of stuff.
Have you still got the blog? Have you still got it? Oh wow.
Yeah, it's still up. Still on my own website.
Wow. I mean,
I put it up there as an archive, you know, so people could see like how deep I was.
We'll put it in the thing.
Yeah.
I will say this though, that was one hell of a weekend though. I mean,
yeah.
I know it's a mad one, because in some way I could hear how someone would try and link those things together, because it is a bit like whole week these things are happening. But I mean, yeah, I mean, how deep is it really? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because then you, like, the thing is, you can just keep going. You can keep going down this rabbit, like, that rabbit hole don't stop. If you're doing numbers, colors, dates, and all of that, and then obviously like just moments that are happening, it just doesn't really stop. But then surely you don't come to a general or like a set in stone conclusion, do you? Or do you? What is the conclusion out of all of that? And what is it that you're trying to like prove within this?
I'm trying to prove that there is a they, and they are doing a ritual on us to control us, to bamboozle us, and make us go along with like their version of reality. That's what I was trying to prove.
Yeah.
And I was trying to prove that by showing, look, this stuff is not coincidence, when they all the things in it have significant meanings.
Right.
You know, but I've also now come to realize it is quite all like coincidences. Because coincidences
some people will
happen.
Some people will say, is there such a thing as coincidence?
Yes, there is. 100%. Like, let's just spoiler alert. Yes, there is. There's coincidences.
Yeah, there is.
People win the lottery, man. Come on.
I hear that. I guess like that's the thing, right? Conspiracists don't believe in coincidences at all, do they? Like nothing can be circumstantial. It all has to be linked to something, right?
Yeah.
So
you have to have like an answer for everything.
Yeah, and then essentially because remember, we're breaking down almost the difference between a conspiracy theorist and a conspiracist. And a conspiracist essentially is somebody who is addicted to confirmation bias, surely.
Yeah.
Like essentially, that's what that is.
I'm always looking for the things that will confirm what I believe. You know, instead of looking for things that are going to put into question what I believe.
Would you say that that is like a big problem that we just have in society now anyway, in regards to like misinformation and the information that people are looking to get? We've got like a massive access to information now. And it does seem as though a lot of the time, all you need to do is go on Twitter and you can just see that like a lot of the time people don't fact check a single thing, right?
Yeah, totally. I see that every single day. I don't know what happened, but it seems like everyone wants to be right now. They don't need to be correct. They just need to be right or make you think that they're right. I don't know when that happened, but it's very prevalent today, you know.
When did you realize that this was a problem for you?
What, the conspiracism?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a problem until I was gone, till I was well out of it. I didn't see...
So how did you come out with it without realizing...
I came out of it because I realized it was wrong. I realized I was incorrect about what I had thought. But I didn't think it was a problem for the world. I didn't think it was like a problem that we all had, you know. Not until January 6th and COVID, essentially, that I saw like the problem with conspiracism, like how it affects society.
How does it affect society?
Sows distrust, like unhealthy distrust. That's my point here. Is like you said, you know, you're skeptical, right?
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
Skepticism is healthy. Everyone should have a bit of skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
Like you shouldn't just believe everything that anyone says,
mm-hmm.
and that comes from mainstream or alternative sources, whatever. Don't ever believe everything that anyone says, you know. But this kind of stuff breeds an unhealthy skepticism, and it breeds this contrarianism, which is where you just got to say the opposite of whatever's going on every time. Like, and that's what we see. That's what we see on social media all the time. You can, no matter what is said, there's somebody to say, no, that's not true. Even if it is like 100% true, man. It's like, yeah, this happened. No, it didn't. Like, I think that's that's the danger of it. You can be manipulated as well. Like if you're gonna go along with what other people are telling you, and you're gonna just buy it because you think that that's the truth, eventually you could be completely manipulated by these people.
Isn't that ironic? Because for them, a lot of the time, they think that everyone else is being manipulated.
Yeah, you do feel you feel like you've broken away from the sheeple, and that you're no longer repeating the narrative or whatever, but you actually become a parrot, and you're parroting the conspiracy narrative. You know, you want to be a sheep or a parrot. Like at the end of the day, it's the same sort of thing.
So, like, talk to me about your coming out stage, though, because I know that you said you realized that you was wrong, then later on you realized it was a problem. But like, if you became so deep into this, talk to me about the process of like when you started to question your own belief system.
So, I think it's best to go back to Sandy Hook, because it's not necessarily at that point that I'm questioning my belief system, but I'm questioning the community. Can I just stop you very quickly? Go for it.
Just for anyone who doesn't, because I feel like there would be some people who would not know what Sandy Hook was or what happened. Could you just like paint that picture just very quickly and then tell me?
Obviously, like Sandy Hook was a school shooting in America in December 2012. And very quickly after that school shooting, a narrative in the community became like prominent, and that was the hoax crisis actor narrative. And that's that nobody dies in these situations, and all the people involved are what's known as crisis actors. Now, that is something that was never really spoken of before Sandy Hook. That was a very new narrative through nearly 10 years of me being a conspiracist and never heard people talk about this. But it's that point from then up until 2015, around like the Charlie Hebdo shooting, which is the magazine in France that some members of ISIS went in there and shot people and murdered them.
Yeah.
Like all the way up until there, like all of my friends, all of the whole community essentially was just saying all this stuff is hoaxes, it's crisis actors. And that doesn't gel with me, because remember I said I believe in rituals. I believe that these people are killed and sacrificed, and that's why I'm angry.
So it contradicts
completely what I think. And that starts pulling me away from the community, right? So I'm no longer really speaking with a lot of the people in the community. I kind of isolate myself, and me and my partner start digging into our own like thing. The blog that I was talking about with about the royal family and that sort of stuff. We thought, well, forget what everyone else is saying. Let's concentrate on showing that these things are rituals. I feel like that isolation is important to talk about, because when 2015 starts rolling around, me and my partner in our isolated state start seeing more things that are going on in the world that we kind of can't make sense of it, considering we thought we knew what was going on for all those years. And what these things were basically is the rise of Trump, Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn taking over the Labour Party. We'd always thought Hillary was definitely going to be the next president. And the thing is like, when you're a conspiracist, you believe that all elections are selections, not elections. We don't elect anyone, just the leader is selected by whoever's
that's a common thing. That's a common thing, especially in the...
Exactly. Well, everywhere. Like, no one trusts these people.
No.
Your votes don't count. They're just going to put whoever they want in, right?
Yeah.
But we thought that was supposed to be Hillary.
We did still.
And somehow it was Trump.
It wasn't, yeah.
Same with Brexit. Now, you believe in a New World Order. The goal of the New World Order is a one world government. And the stepping stone to this one world government are these unions. The European Union, there would be a North American Union, and that there would be like an Arab Union, and all these other unions would start forming, and eventually they could become a one world government. Now, Brexit threw a spanner in the works there, because the United Kingdom is pulling itself away from the European Union. Like, how is that helping a one world government? And how is that serving the establishment? It turns out it wasn't. And then also, like, Corbyn takes over the Labour Party. And the Labour Party was practically run by these establishment types. And I had always known of this Corbyn guy as being like anti-war, anti-Iraq war. He was known like as the thorn in Tony Blair's side through those times. Now, the thing that all three of those had in common was that I noticed people had done this. Like, our votes had actually done this. It played against what the establishment would have planned for.
Or wanted.
And they were all like won by narrow margins and changed. And that's what I noticed. Like, hold on. Our votes do count. And politics actually is kind of working. It might not be right, it might not be good, but it is actually, democracy is right there in play. And that's something that I saw, and that's something that started to make me seriously question like the one world government kind of Illuminati belief system.
Right.
But that's just the politics side of it, right? That's just the real world side of it. There's the other side of it that was caught up in my religion, which is, like I said, they were trying to raise the Antichrist. They were essentially all Satanists and in this cult. Now, the thing that kind of pulled me away from that was just because I was bored with the conspiracy stuff, and I felt like I just need to get away from all of it. I started like studying more about my religion, and I started studying more about historical context of Jesus, who he was, who the man was at the time, who were the people around him, what was Jerusalem like at the time, because I feel like context really helps you understand stuff, like way more than anything else. Like just putting yourself in that historical context, you really start to get a good view of what is going on. And it was things that essentially the book of Revelation that speaks of the Antichrist, when I came across information that basically proved to me that it was that the Antichrist mentioned there was Emperor Nero, who was alive at the time, and it wasn't talking about some being that would come 2,000 years later, that kind of just destroyed any belief that I had in like an Antichrist coming. And looking into it more and more, I realized like actually this doomsday rapture Antichrist thing that people are like waiting to happen or whatever has already happened, and there's nothing that I was waiting for. You know, I generally thought like, you know, the devil was in control of everything. And when I realized all of this stuff and started looking into it and getting more historical context about it, I realized actually the devil's a pussy. He's nobody. He's not here. He's not in control of nothing. This is God's planet. This is God's universe. This is man is in control here. Yeah, not that thing. Yeah. And what the devil would want us to do is to believe that he was the one in charge of everything. Right. That he was the hidden hand behind all these conspiracies. And I just felt like, okay, I fell for his propaganda, essentially, because he ain't in charge of nothing. And that's kind of what broke away this satanic element of my like Illuminati belief system.
EA, just come a little bit closer and just say what you asked him.
I asked about a go bag. So if he still has a go bag, being that he's no longer a conspiracist. Right.
So, and your answer to that was, babe, actually, just extra context. A go bag is just so that, like, if something mad happens, let me get this right. If something mad happens, this bag is a bag that you pick up and you just cut with.
Yeah, it's got all your stuff in it. It's got a bit of extra cash in it. It's got some sort of survival gear in it. That's totally. I don't have a go bag anymore, but I did have a go bag.
Right.
And I also had a plan.
Okay, what was
if the day came and the New World Order like officially took over, martial law was installed or something like that, the plan was, right, we're dipping out of Bristol, we're crossing the bridge, and we're going to Wales. Now, me and my friends and my partner, we all used to go to Wales and do walks and different places, and eventually like we came across an abandoned farmhouse, and we thought, right, this is the spot. If anything pops off, this is where we go. This is where we meet, essentially, because we're all in different places in Bristol, or some of us in different places in the country. We all know, like, we're going to meet there at that abandoned farmhouse. And, like, I've shown you the picture there.
Yeah, this will be on the screen. I'm going to see if I can pull it somewhere so the audio listeners can see this as well. How did you find this place?
On a walk. Because we went to, we used to stay in Wales, like camping and do things like that. And so we went on a walk through the forests and everything. And we came across that place and we marked it down on the map and we were like, right, this is the one. And we went back a few times to make sure like no one had bought it, no one was renovating it or anything like that. Not always abandoned, probably still abandoned today.
Oh wow. Are you married? Yeah, exactly. Are you married?
No, we never got married. It's because my partner's actually ill. She's got ME/CFS and she's had it since she's got it, you know, for quite a few years. Right. From getting glandular fever. Right. And essentially she's got the same problem like that long COVID people have. Whereas like they're very tired, very fatigued and plenty of other things that go along with that. Right. Yeah, basically. So we're waiting to get married. We've been engaged for a long time, you know, and
so sending love and guidance to her. How like, I mean, the one thing about me, I'm romantic. I love romance. How would it be if you got married here?
In it.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or had your honeymoon there or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, have like you know, there's always something special about when things come round full circle, isn't it? You know, this place once had a certain type of meaning, and now it has a different type of meaning. But what exactly was in your go bag?
There was a bit of money. There was like a knife, obviously, but not for protection, but for like chopping shit up. Yeah. Waterproof matches. There was some tinned fruit and tinned
tuna.
Yeah.
Straight up. Tuna's a week. Yeah.
To be fair as well, like we had to change the food like a few times because the expiration date. You know, because like we started this in like 2010. I didn't come out until 2018, so at some point in there we had to change some of the stuff over. But we had like tarpaulins so that you could like build a quick tent, emergency blanket, right? Like different little things that you would be able to like try and like at least survive a night in the Welsh woods, you know, while you're on your way getting there, essentially. I think we had a solar charger as well. Right. Like if we had any electrics or anything like that we needed. There's just lots of little things that would make that job sort of easier. To be fair, we would have been caught by the police, like just trying to cross the bridge. You know what I mean? I'm not. I can see that now.
I feel like you might be missing one part of that thing in the bag.
Yeah.
And tell me whether you had it in there. Like, be honest. Weed.
Oh, I didn't need that in the bag, man. I always had my own bag. I just grabbed my stash, man. It doesn't need to go in the go bag.
There's actually, thinking about it now, just as you was talking, there's one other thing I actually was meaning to ask that I'll put in here as well somewhere. Is there a common denominator between people that find themselves being a conspiracist? Is there like another thing, another life thing that you find now in hindsight links people together, aside from seeking what they believe is this truth?
The common thread that I find is that thirst for knowledge, but also caring for humanity. I think people who actually really care about humanity are the people who are trying to, you know, who can fall into these traps because they're looking for an answer. The world's screwed up, right? The world is fucked up. It's corrupt. There's so much wrong with it that they're trying to figure out a way to fix it. I think creativity is another thing that, like, I think crosses the spectrum when it comes to conspiracism, because if you're creative enough to imagine it, then you can believe it. I think that might have been like my thing, like, because I've always been very creative, so if I can imagine something, then I guess it could be reality. I know a lot of people want to say like drugs, but I don't think that's the case whatsoever. Again, yeah, I'm potted. I smoke weed. I've smoked weed since I was 17. My partner's teetotal. She's never smoked weed in her entire life, never taken a Class A drug. Used to drink a little bit, like going clubbing or something, but she's teetotal now, you know, so nothing like that ever took her down the rabbit hole. What she is creative. You know, she's got a brilliant imagination. And I think imagination and intelligence, smack that together, like, you could fall into these pitfalls.
Really interesting. I think, you know, whenever I've had like a little thought about people or something controlling the world, for me, I like the small little, I would never say I've done any type of deep diving in this, by the way. This is just, again, all based upon my own naivety, thoughts, feelings, and cynicism. Yeah. And by the way, can I just say, because I'm making it sound like I'm like a super pessimist and a contrarian. I'm actually not. Like, I don't really. I just care about like my community, people, and like I'm just really interested in like how I'm just interested in people's minds and what makes people do the things that they do. That is like a really big interest of mine. But I've always thought that like when people talk about, you know, whether it be the devil or whether it be like a group of people that are controlling the world, sometimes I've always thought that people could mention that as if like these people or whatever it is would always get it right. Whereas I always look at it like, I think that they probably get it wrong. If there is something like this, they get it wrong and then they just try to find ways to adapt. Like, okay, This is probably the better way to put it. Yeah? So like one of my things is that sometimes I feel as though, sometimes it feels as though as a human, like sometimes we're being pushed to see how far we can adapt. Because I think one thing that we're really, really good at doing is adapting. We always adapt. So like when you look at situations that happen that go against the belief of a group of people or a section of people, one of the first things that they do, especially in a democracy, is they'll come out and they'll protest. Yeah, so people come out, they protest and whatever, and then, you know, everyone gets their moans off or whatnot. But if there's not enough people protesting, then that thing never changes, and then ultimately we just end up adapting. The only way that we don't adapt is if the majority, whatever that looks like, actually really does come out. So again, using another example, let's just say the government, yeah, they're implementing whatever that thing might be, yeah. If 50,000 people come out and they protest against it, I know that if I was part of the government, I would just think 50,000 people is quite a lot of people, but in the greater scheme of numbers, that's not a lot of people, and they're not going to come out tomorrow. It's all right.
60 million in our country.
Right.
Well, who cares about 50?
Exactly. So, but if, yeah, let's like go back to that number. Let's just say, you know what, 40 million people came out and said like they just abandoned everything, and they said, you know what, we are all prepared to put our life on the line right now if you don't change this thing. You'd see how quickly like this thing that they would be trying to implement would stop, because there's always powers in number, isn't it? Yeah? So sometimes I think that like sometimes there are certain things that happen and it might go against the grain of what might have been whatever this plan was supposed to happen. But I don't know if there's necessarily, in my mind, it's like, I've never thought that there's necessarily like an end goal. I've just always just thought that like, you know what, let's just keep pushing these people until we can just see what ends up happening. In some weird way, I would probably do that. I could see how somebody would do that. But again, if I'm being honest, I just don't care enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think, I think it's very dangerous for me to marinate in that and really like convince myself that this is exactly what's happening in the world or whatnot. I think my thought process is always, is it beyond the realms of possibility? I believe that something like some weird shit's going on, and that weird shit isn't always based upon the person or the people or the group or the alien or the whatever the hell it is getting it right. Because I think that sometimes they might do some shit and be like, oh shit, that wasn't supposed to happen like that. Okay, do you know what? Now that we've done that, let's try this. Do you know what I'm saying?
But who's they?
I don't know.
This is the
question. I don't know. But misinformation more than anything is a massive problem, though. And like, that's a weird one for me as well, Brent, because it's like on one side, at one point in time, the news and the information that we was getting was almost coming from like up here and being given to us, which may not always be a bad thing. But see, like now, someone can just say stuff on the internet, and then this one thing could end up just becoming super viral, and it could be something that people believe, and then before you know it, it's like there's a group of people that are believing something that is really not true. And I always battle with like finding, well, I feel like I know how to find a balance. I just fact check. But I think like just in the greater scheme of things, I think fact checking and actually critical thinking isn't so much of a thing. So what is the best thing to implement for the greater good, so that there is some type of balance? Because you can't just trust some of the media companies because they have sometimes financial benefits, relationships, all these type of things. But then you can't always just believe what, you know, is given to you down here.
Yeah,
does that make
from
sense?
Alternative sources,
right?
Like alt media or anything like that.
Exactly.
You shouldn't listen to what. Shouldn't just believe what anyone says. Essentially, you know, listen to it, see how that feels. If it don't feel right, look it up. You know, if it feels too good to be true, look it up as well. That's what I find. Like as a conspiracist, if you find something that really is like your smoking gun, all of a sudden, if that's too good to be true, you might really want to dig into that. But in regards to like misinformation and disinformation and how we're going to combat it, like essentially we're going to need a new government. All right, this government doesn't care about us, these people in charge right now, because we need to do this in education. You know, we need to teach media literacy to the youth.
100%.
That's what we start. That's where we start to actually change society. Is we need that implemented, where they can actually learn how to fact check, how to critically think, how to be aware of the certain traps like cognitive bias, you know, confirmation bias, all these kind of things. Once they can learn those things at a nice early age, they're not going to be fooled by media or by anyone trying to tell them like something that's not going on, you know. But that's like that's a tough one, because like I said, we got to change the government or convince the government to implement this into education, and they seem to not care about education. They just want you to learn maths until you're 18. You know, they just want to do this type of stuff instead. But on the other hand, like, what can we do to people who aren't in school? You know, to people who are older and everything. And I honestly have no clue how to fix this other than challenge it. I know a lot of people want to censor it. They want to shut people down, and I am not for that. I am not someone that likes to censor anybody. I think like illegal hate speech, things like that, yeah, that's when you get shut down. All right, but questioning things or spreading a conspiracy theory or whatever, I don't think that is worth censoring. But we need more people out here who can challenge it, which is what I do every single day. I'm on the internet and I'm challenging people. You know, I'm not trying to shut a conversation down. I'm challenging it and trying to break through with like, see, this is the truth here, and here's where I got that truth from, so you can go look it up yourself. You know, try and give people those tools. Essentially, that's the only thing I know what to do.
Do me one thing quickly. Hate speech. Put that on the screen for me quickly, because what I think is, I think there needs to be something like super clear in what that is, because sometimes, you know, like you see certain things, you see like maybe what you've mentioned where people question things or they give their belief based upon information that they've got. This is going to sound so contradictory, but it's not coming from a place of hate, it's coming from a place of fact. But then sometimes that fact can comes across as hate.
Yeah.
And then there's like almost like conversations based upon like, you know, a group of people saying this is hate speech, and then another group of people saying, but this isn't hate speech. And then for me, it sort of speaks to how divided we actually really are as people, and like how we think about stuff, and even how we interpret rules. What does it say in here? In common language, hate speech refers to the offensive discourse targeting a group or an individual based on inherent characteristics such as race, religion, gender. So that's the thing as well. Gender is something that like you kind of see the lines being blurred with a bit, right? Because, which we're not going to get into a conversation about. I'm just using this as an example of like hate speech. Some people say this is wrong. I don't believe that this should be right. I don't believe that kids should be taught this. And to a group of people, that comes across as hate speech. And if you become popular at saying, you know what, I just don't believe that this is right, I think that this is wrong. If there's enough people that turn around and say that that is hate, then it's deemed as hate.
Well, that's democracy, mate. That's a society. Like, at the end of the day, we've got justice system, we've got courts, and the courts are going to decide whether or not a crime has been committed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sure, sometimes those, you know, those courts can be corrupt, but this is something we all have to work out together as society. Like it should never be rigid. You know, there should be like that room for flex. Is this person being hateful, or have they just got a hateful view? You know, like that you can sit there and be like, oh yeah, I don't agree with like homosexuality. I don't think anyone should be like that. I think it's wrong. I think it's against nature or whatever. Like you can think that, but that's fine. You can have your opinion, right? But the minute you start calling someone the F slur,
that's where you're.
And then you need to get out here. You F this, F that. That then becomes the hate speech, and that's where the court will have to decide whether or not.
Yeah, that's where it becomes evident.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is like we need to all be a bit more flexible, a bit more fluid. Be like water, you know. Stop being so rigid and like this is definitely going to be. If you don't like transgender people, you're a hate. No. Like. Yeah. Are they being hateful or not? Like, are they attacking somebody based on their race, gender? I think that's the line, essentially, on this for when we're talking about hate speech. You know, and like I said, different countries have different laws. So England has its own laws on what it considers hate speech, on what it considers like. How bad the crime is, you know, and that, like I said, that goes across the board, and it's what society is going to have to figure out in that. But I'm not keen on censorship.
Neither am I.
Yeah, but if you break the law, then you gotta pay the price.
It's alright. It's fine. Yeah, you're right. You need to be like, if you do break the law, you should be held accountable for it.
Yeah, and so someone like going back to Alex Jones.
Yeah.
You know, he defamed these parents of murdered children, saying that they had hoaxed their own children's deaths and things like that, you know, so like that's illegal in certain countries to say things like that about people. Slander, you know, or yeah, like certain things if a court decides that it's wrong, then it's wrong. You should be locked out.
No, I definitely agree with you on censorship thing as well. Definitely. Like I always think, because sometimes there are people I just don't agree with them. I don't agree with what they say. I don't agree with what they stand for. But whenever I see someone like being censored, then I always like it gets my back up a little bit, because then I always think, right, that could just happen to me. Like somebody could just one day just turn around and just say, I don't agree with what he says, and you know what, like let's just censor him. I don't think that we can grow from doing that. I don't think we can grow from censorship. I think we stay stagnant by doing that. But critical thinking is definitely one thing that we could all improve on, I believe. Just a bit of that, you know, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to just like end on a little bit, is like, you know what? Just critically thinking just a little bit more, just a tad bit more. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself going down these crazy rabbit holes and having these mad belief systems, and then doing things like not getting a mortgage.
And then you're 44 years old and you've got no mortgage. You live in a 1-bedroom flat. You got your 9-to-5 job. Mm-hmm. No kids. Like nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah, it's crazy. But don't worry, man. Things can still. I mean, you're in the right. You know, it doesn't.
I'm happy. That's the most important thing. I'm happy, and you know, I'm not alone.
Right then, exactly. Is there like, are we missing anything here? Is there anything? Because I feel like I've got a lot of what I wanted to get out of you, but actually no. Yeah, where are you at today? Like, where are you at today?
Today, I'm still trying to figure out a lot of what I believed. Like, I broke down the specific conspiracy theories that, you know, I spoke about, that I believed. Illuminati, New World Order, Antichrist, all that kind of thing. So that kind of broke down the grand conspiracy. Now I'm at a place where I'm trying to figure out the little tiny conspiracy theories that built up this grand conspiracy. So what happened on 9/11? What happened with JFK? What's going on inside Bohemian Grove? What is this World Economic Forum conspiracy theory? What are these such a things? So, you know, I found a friend who also is going through this process, and basically we sat down and we said, let's do this together then. Let's figure this out and actually like apply the critical thinking. Let's interview people who know more about it. Let's like actually figure this stuff out. So, you know, we started our own podcast. Some dare call it conspiracy, and we like really dive into these subjects, and we do like these 4-hour deep dives presenting it. But we spent like 2 months actually researching it, editing it, putting it together, so that it's like digestible for people.
Right.
You know, and that's where I'm really interested in redefining what it was that I believed, really figuring it out, and then sharing that with other people. So that's what I really wanted to do. I want to bring my friends out of that rabbit hole.
Right.
You know, at the minute they don't want nothing to do with me.
Oh, really? They cut you out of it?
Thousands. Like the whole community of musicians and all that. Like there's like one guy that still speaks to me online from there, someone else from somewhere else, and like one person in my real life that I was friends with. Like he's the only other person that still tends to talk to me, but we've only spoken like 2 times since the pandemic. You know, in real life, like the thing is gone. People I made friendships and relationships with for 15 to nearly 20 years literally cut me off that day. The day I came out and said, I think we've been swindled, everybody, and I gotta show you like the things that I've learned. And so that's really motivates me to try and just keep putting out the information, and hopefully, like, you guys trusted me 10 years ago, why don't you trust me today? You know,
it's not part of the confirmation bias anymore.
No, exactly. Now I'm making them have to question their own standing, because well, Brent confirmed what I believed all these years, and now he's not confirming it at all. Instead, he's actually saying it's wrong.
Yeah, man. I mean, bro, like, I love the idea of the pod that you're doing. I'm definitely going to check out some episodes and stuff. One thing, because sometimes I don't even really know what I believe at times. I just, I go all over the place with it and stuff like that. I just try to just do my best with like spreading good information and like just doing my bit for the community and stuff. What I wanted to ask you though is like, would you ever be okay with not knowing? If you didn't know what actually did happen, you just knew that what you was told was wrong. Would you be okay with just not knowing? Or is it like deep within you to always really try to find the truth?
I've really leaned into being liberated by being able to say, I don't know.
That's why sometimes I feel really liberated, Brent, because like I'm always searching for information and I'm always like looking for stuff, and I'm pretty good at listening to people that I don't agree with sometimes, just to hear, because sometimes I believe that some people say sense out of nonsense sometimes, you know. It just depends on some of the things that they're saying. And then there's other times when I listen to people that I find myself usually really agreeing with, but there's times when I might not necessarily agree with everything that they say. And I feel like there's something quite liberating about being able to not wholeheartedly believe everyone and everything. Mm-hmm. And also being the one in the group to say, do you know what? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, I think maybe this maybe it could have been that. It sounds like it could have been this, or it sounds like it could have been that. But do you know what? I actually don't know.
Yeah. And it's really rare these days.
Yeah, because as you said before, most people don't want to not know. They want to be right.
Yeah. I always want to be right and convince someone else that you should believe the thing I believe. But I really lean into it now. If I don't know something, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm on that journey to try and find out. But if I don't find out, then I don't find out. Like, there's certain things you're not going to know unless you were there.
Right.
As much as you like want to understand something, like, you just won't. You're never going to know.
Don't you think history is an amazing thing as well, though? Because like when you deep history, I say this so many times here, right? Sometimes people will say, like, I'll read something and it will say in 1706, and then it will tell me what happened in 1706, and I'm like, it's very difficult for me to get past the number, because I'm like, 1706. Do you know how long ago that was? Why was it not 1707?
Yeah.
Why was it not 1705? Like, how do we know that this was actually 1706?
Probably because of historical record.
Yeah, but
someone wrote it down in their diary.
But you understand how much that had to go. Like, if someone wrote this down, like, if I wrote something down right now, and I told someone to keep this safe, I know that I think that the way that we think in general is probably very different to how people would have thought back then anyway. Because when you think about, like, even knowing how to write would have been quite a big thing.
True.
Do you get what I'm saying? And I think that, like,
ooh, I could easily. Huh? You can write. Oh, you're fancy.
You can write, exactly. You probably was considered as like quite upper class if you could write or read and stuff. And so from that aspect, you're writing something or you're giving a bit of information. I could see for actually why, like, thousands of years people would hold maybe that thing sacred. I'm not talking about religion here, by the way, because it sounds like I'm talking about that. I'm just talking about in general. Why some people might hold that sacred, because this person could write something down and I can read it, or there's a message in here and I'm going to hold it. But yeah, sometimes I always get thrown off when I'm told a number, Because I'm always like, I know that people say a historical record, but how do you keep a record for that long? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we got
the concept of that is nuts. We could do it now, but then even in 1,000 years' time, do you understand how different the world would be then, like for now? Do you know how different the world will be in like 20 years?
Yeah, I was going to say 100 or 50, even 50 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be so different.
1,000!
Look what it was like 50 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to now.
Look how different things were like 50 years ago to now. And then you go forward 1,000 years, like, it's actually just crazy. But you know what, Brent? I don't know. I don't know. And I'm happy for somebody to tell me and for me to, hear a perspective and for me, for something to fit somewhere in, because I do like to shape my belief system somehow. And I like that. That's what we just do that through conversations and stuff, innit?
It's good to test yourself.
100%.
It's good to test where you're at today.
100%. Well, listen, thanks. I appreciate you coming, man.
Thanks
I really do appreciate it. I will leave some links in the description and that as well. So if anyone wants to go and check out your pod, or even I wouldn't mind the link to your blog.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Just so some people could actually see where you was like at and like where you come from.
If they follow me on Twitter at Brent Lee SDCIC, the SDCIC is for some dare call it conspiracy.
Right.
My pinned thread, it has like my history.
Yeah.
I've put like a good little thread of like 14 posts that explain the whole journey.
Yeah.
And in that journey, like I've got the blogs in there, I've got the websites, I've got me doing spoken word, I've got doing all different things throughout those years and how I came in and out. So it's kind of a good place to dive into what I'm talking about.
Right.
Or to dive into that whole 15, 20 year history.
Wicked. Nice one. And big up to you for your growth as well. Honestly, like, because a lot of people find themselves in a place and they choose to stay there.
Yeah.
No matter how much you raise questions for them, no matter how much they can't answer questions, no matter how much they really want to believe what it is that they believe in, they choose to stay there. And there's nothing that you can do to pull them out of that. And I think, it does say a lot about your character that, you know what, there was a part of you that was like, I don't know about this. Let me ask some questions. And I think if some of us did that a little bit more, we'd probably be in a better place in regards to humanity and stuff, man. But
yeah, totally.
Thanks for coming down, bro. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Yeah.